Hey, happy Monday afternoon. Dr. Alan Christensen here with you. Welcome to another episode of Office Hours Live. So good to be with you. I'm with you guys on a couple platforms today. I'm with you on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube Live. So good to connect. Cindy Purple's with us. I'm seeing other friends jumping on. So yeah, good to connect everyone. Happy to see you all. Nice to be here on this Monday in September, which is still summer in the Sonoran Desert, but coming into fall for most everywhere else. And I had a couple updates to share and a few things I heard, and always happy to get some of your questions. That's the point about these. So you can put in some questions in the comment in real time, and I will see those. And let me know where you're from, your top health concerns, and I'll do my best to address those. And if you put a question up, hang out. I often have follow-up questions. And that's, I think, how it gets to be helpful. I won't just say like a basic thing off the cuff. I'll ask you more and get some more insights on it from your perspective. So yeah, hang out and let's get a conversation going. Okay, seeing Cindy Purple, you lost weight on your face. You know, I think it is a little bit leaner. Cindy, uh, quite insightful. I have not, many others probably haven't noticed that, but no, the Boston Marathon's coming up, and pretty jazzed about this. I shared the journey. I've been a, frustrated runner my whole life, and lost about 17 years of running as an adult due to orthopedic problems, my stuff that I've talked about before. I had cerebral palsy and complications from that as a child, and I had a lot of surgeries that set me back quite a bit, but I'm running again last few years. I qualified for Boston. You might not have heard, but there was a pandemic that happened. So Boston spring to 2020 didn't occur, but now we're supposed to have a Boston event in October. So yeah, my mileage is up a bit and just changing the training a bit, and pants are a little looser. So yeah, Cindy Purple, you're right. Yeah, welcome any luck that I am wished. But yeah, good to be with you guys. And a couple of quick things. Let me just go up here. I had a interview earlier, and this was a lot of fun. There was a gal who first heard about the thyroid reset diet when it came out, and I dimly remember this. She said, "I'm going to leave a review about it, but I want to wait and see what happens to me." And apparently, she'd had Hashimoto's disease for about 20 years. And she'd always struggled with high antibodies. They never really changed for her. And let's see. So yeah, this is how it can look. So here's thyroid peroxidase over 1,000. Here's thyroglobulin 42. So both of those pretty high. And the images are showing up on Facebook and YouTube right now for everyone. And we can see that after the diet, they're down. They're basically non-measurable, and that's a change that happens. That's not uncommon. And she was excited about that, so she was gushing about that in our follow-up interview. And her story was cool because she didn't change a lot. In her case, the two big things were dulse. If you may not know, Dulse, it's a type of sea vegetable, also called laver. And this is more of an Atlantic sea vegetable, and it's been used as a snack for a while, and it's tasty stuff. It's kind of salty and smoky tasting, but she used a lot of it. And also she had a lot of egg yolks in her diet. So her big changes were to take those things out, and that was the bulk of it. And yeah, her thyroid's come around after just a few months. So really cool news. Another question I got a lot recently, one in a couple formats, was about the reset pack. And the basic version of it was, why did I include vitamin A and exclude vitamin B6 when I made the daily reset pack? And I'm seeing a lot of good comments coming in about the story. People saying that's incredible, that's cool. Seeing a lot more good questions and comments rolling in here, so I will stay on top of these. And let me just make sure that I've got all of them visible. Okay, yeah, lots of them. And this is interesting too. Here's someone talking about ups and downs, about vitamins and side effects. So yeah, good thing, perfect timing. So here was the thoughts about vitamin A and B6, why I did those the way that I did. What we see, this was a study on vitamin A supplementation, and the study showed it took a group of women who were heavy and had thyroid disease, and it watched to see specifically how vitamin A supplementation affected their scores. And what they saw was that over the course of 4 months, with pretty reasonable amounts, nothing too terribly high, their TSH dropped by a full point, and actually a little bit more than that. And T3, T4, they all improved. So that was relevant. Now, the B6, why I left out B6, and just put a little thought in there. The Reset Pack, I put things in that have been clinically shown to help thyroid function, things that people with thyroid disease are known to be low in, and things that can impact related disease states that affect thyroid function. So it's really focused on that. And I did leave out a lot of stuff on purpose, and B6 was one of those. I did a video, it's called, Is B6 Toxicity Holding Your Health Back? And anyone can go deeper and check that video out for more insights. But high levels of B6 can cause anxiety, nerve pain, brain fog, numbness, fatigue, and pretty severe, And we know that the threshold is not clear, definitely above 20 milligrams of B6. And to be really specific, it's pyridoxal hydrochlorine that we're talking about. That's one of the more common types of B6. It's the synthetic B6 in supplements. So yeah, pyridoxine HCl above 20 milligrams, no doubt that many people can get toxicity from it. There are those with autoimmune disease and chronic inflammation to where even smaller amounts, maybe as little as 5 or 10 milligrams. Now, B6 also comes in the form of pyridoxal 5-phosphate, and that's what I've put in that daily reset pack. So it's just the pyridoxal 5-phosphate. That type doesn't cause those issues. It just can't, because B6 causes those harm because it blocks the body from making pyridoxal 5-phosphate. That's the drawback about it. But yeah, take a look at that. And honestly, if you've been struggling with numbness or tingling, nerve pain, anxiety, vague fatigue, inventory your vitamins. And if you've got pyridoxine hydrochloride in there, it could be a culprit. And this is a simple thing. You do a serum B6 test, and people are blatantly elevated when it's a problem. It's not like a in range, but on this end, or this number on a Tuesday. It's nothing complicated. It's just elevated. And if B6 is elevated, it can make you sick. Now, P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, that's what your body is trying to make B6 into. And it's useful. It helps methylation. So I included that, but I didn't include B6 on purpose. Okay, so those are a couple points I wanted to mention out of the gate at the very beginning. And past that, let's hang out. Let's talk about a few of your questions. So I'm seeing some both on Facebook, some on Instagram. Hey, YouTube friends, you guys can put some in too. Put some questions live in this, and I will keep an eye out for those. So let's see. Holly's with us today. Hey, Holly, good to see you too. Here's one. Just started to reset your metabolism. Any tips? Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, and good question. So a big tip is think about it as a recipe, okay? So the whole program is a recipe that pretty consistently causes a loss of 2 to 3 inches around the waist and several pounds of fat from the liver. Now, with recipes, if you do them just like they're laid out, you know what to expect, more or less. So once you make it, once you get the hang of it, you know what to expect. If you want to tweak a recipe and change it, go for it. You can find out if it works better or worse. But you won't know until you've done it per the recipe the first time through. So if you're new on, try it just as it is, even with some of the ideas that might sound crazy, like lowering the exercise, or skipping nuts as a snack. Some of these things, just try it out as it is. And exactly as it plays out, give us your feedback on that, because it's all there for a reason, and we've tested it as it is and seen pretty consistent results. Now, there are people that have it work well. They go on to tweak it for themselves, and they find that it works as well or better. Totally cool. But there are also those that try it out. They try to do it differently in some way, and it may not work as well. And that's tough, because they didn't do the recipe, they don't know for sure if it was that this wouldn't work for them or because the modifications made it not work. So yeah, so try it as it is for starters. Um, and otherwise, yeah, I've got so much detail, so much content. Try some of the recipes that are given as well. People like them. It's less stuff to think about. And yeah, go through it as is and give us feedback. If you're not already on the um, Metabolism Reset Challenge group on Facebook, come on there and hang out. There's tons of folks that have done this before. We've got 20 some odd thousand who've done this before, and it's a great community. People are quick to give helpful insights and tips and encouragement. So yeah, come on over there and get some more guidance as well. But there's some tips, and I'm really just proud of how it's worked for people, and I'm excited to hear others try it and see how it goes for them as well. All right, let me grab a lot of good questions coming in on Instagram. I'm seeing these. I will come back to these. Let me grab one that's here on Facebook. Okay. I just found out I have Hashimoto's over. So the funny thing is it's showing up on one screen, but it won't let me scroll through it. No. Okay, so I'm going to just hide so I can read all of it myself. But here's the intro. Found out that I have Hashimoto's. Last few months, been experiencing some of the weirdest ups and down effects. Any vitamins to... I'm trying to get it to show up for me again. Okay, I'm guessing top 5 things to do better see yourself with this autoimmune condition. Currently going through Isabella Wentz's book, but see you have a book too. Also on anxiety medication. Not sure if it's the right one for me either, but I tend to not have the proper amount of time to settle in. Okay, yeah, Jamie. I think there's a follow-up. Already removed gluten from my diet and about 6 weeks free. Yeah, Jamie. So great question. Big picture is there is hope out there. People can get better. I would highly encourage you, Isabella Wentz, dear friend, highly respected, lots of great work out there. She talks about how many are affected by iodine, and she's mentioned that in her books. In my book you're referring to, that's what I focused on primarily. And there's been studies showing that people with Hashimoto's like you, that of those who follow an iodine-regulated diet, roughly 97% radically improve. And of them, about 78% are completely cured. They're totally normalized again. I'm a Minnesota farm boy that's not prone to like hype or hyperbole, so that's a darn big deal. In the studies, to be really precise, 78.3% of people regained fully normal thyroid function within 3 months of doing nothing but that diet. Now, 70.3 is lower because that leaves in those that didn't comply very well. But if you set those folks aside, and also if you acknowledge that 78% also doesn't take into account the fact that some people got better but didn't get totally better yet within 3 months. So if you take out those that didn't do the diet and you acknowledge just those that radically improved, it's about 97%. And of them, most were totally cured, which is crazy cool. So I'm jazzed about that. And that's why I think that could be a good thing for you to add in as well. So check it out. Tam T is asking, is there iodine in marine collagen supplements? Tam T, the assays I've seen suggest that there is. The deeper question is there benefit to marine collagen supplements? I can't find good signs of benefit. Tam, there's a detailed post I wrote about collagen, aka bone broth, recently, and I looked at the big claims about skin health, gut health, bone health, connective tissue, body composition, protein replacement, and I went through like all the studies where those claims come from. And if you follow along with it, you'll be surprised that there's not a good basis for those claims. I don't think there's any clear harm from it, but it's not a viable protein substitute, and I explain that. The data on it helping skin really was a bit of a farce, and the data on pain and bone and gut benefits are also, either the benefits were so small they're not meaningful, or they were things in which the word collagen was used in the study, but it wasn't really talking about collagen supplements. Every one of them had an issue like that. And yeah, if the data was otherwise, I'd be encouraging them myself, but just don't see the data like that. Let's see. One more on, let's get this one on Facebook too. Recently received an email from what appeared to be a reputable website insisting that soy and other foods, including flax, are destructive to the thyroid, causing hypothyroidism. Here we go again. Controversy over soy and its estrogenic type effects. I think I heard that say that soy doesn't have an effect. Can you once again address this issue? As a vegetarian, why does country continue to rage? Thanks. So two questions. Here's a quick one. Marilyn, glad to hear you today, Dr. C. Good to see you, Marilyn. So two questions in there from Charlene. One is, does soy really hurt your thyroid? The other one is, why does this keep coming back? The second one, yeah, you got me. Why does anything, I don't know, lots of things don't make sense, don't have good data, but they come back and we keep hearing about them. And this is one of those. So this has been studied exhaustively. And in fact, in 2019, there was a meta-analysis done which pulled together all the known human studies done on soy and thyroid function. And the conclusion was, it doesn't do anything. Hey, Charlene, if you check out Medical Myths, Legends, and Fairy Tales, that's one of my podcasts. I interviewed a respected researcher who's also a vegan. Yeah, you said vegan/vegetarian. He is a vegan. And he and I talked in crazy depth about all this research about soy and thyroid and explaining it as well. You can check that out for more just information or more enjoyment. I've written about this pretty exhaustively. And I had all my dear thyroid expert friends, all the big thyroid experts you can think of. I told them, I said, hey, look, you guys, I'm wondering about this. I don't really see what the hype is all about. Send me the best studies you have that's showing that soy is dangerous or soy should be avoided, and just prove it to me. And I don't care. I will believe anything. Just give me the data. And so I got a lot of crickets, meaning no one really said, not no one, but many didn't really respond, but several did, and they shared studies, and I reviewed all those studies as well, and they honestly didn't show signs of harm. So yeah, I've written a crazy detailed blog, got some podcasts about that. Check those out. So, Kimberly Faith Jones, hey Kimberly, we had a nice talk recently. Good to see you here. When do you suggest taking Liver Love in your mood support products? Well, the Liver Love especially can be a useful thing in terms of just that. Now, liver function can be suspected to be off when the body doesn't really maintain a good set point. So if you think about this, none of us get exactly the fuel we need on a daily basis. We can't. We always get more or less. And a healthy liver buffers that. It stores the extra, and then when we don't need it, and it delivers that extra when we do need it. And that's how we can maintain a set point. Now, it's impossible to always come out just right. So wherever we are, we're always off by some amount. And so when the set point's not working, if a little bit extra food causes weight gain, but yet weight loss doesn't occur without a major food deficit, that's a sign the liver's not regulating metabolism correctly. And that's when I find Liver Love useful. Marilyn, a follow-up question about soy. No, not inflammatory. And Marilyn, the reason that I even got into the whole soy thing was another friend of mine, Dr. Steve Masley. He shared with me several really good studies showing that the people that I talked to, mostly were talking about perimenopausal and menopausal women, right? And he showed me several good studies showing that soy cuts their risk of death from heart disease. It cuts their risk of death from breast cancer. It improves their bone health. It lowers the risk of hip fracture. And so if there was no benefit at all to soy, if it was totally neutral, even then, in that case, even if there was the weakest data saying it might be bad, I'd say, yeah, I might as well skip it. It's not going to help anyway, and it might be bad in some way. Why not just skip it? But when Dr. Masley showed me the data showing all these benefits in other ways, in my mind, I said, hey, if I'm going to tell someone to avoid soy, I better have a good reason. I better have a strong reason to say, this is critical for your thyroid, and I have no doubt about that. So even though it might help in these ways, you're better off avoiding it. And that's why I really went to work and dug deep and wanted to make sense of this. So I did, and that's why I came to those conclusions. But that's my agenda, is getting the best data for you guys. I don't sell soy, or I'm not concerned about it otherwise, but I want to make sure you're not missing something that could be helpful. Okay, so now I've got like this. Anyone else heard the word smorgasbord? I grew up in northern Minnesota, like Scandinavian land. So a smorgasbord is like a buffet. So I've got like a smorgasbord of questions here, and I've got to figure out. I can't get them all. I see that, but I want to really get ones that are most helpful to the most of you all. So I'm kind of looking to scan and see some that are showing up in a couple of ways, and also ones I can address more quickly than others. So right now I'm scanning on Instagram, lots of good ones. And I think someone else has heard smorgasbord. FM Vic has probably heard that. And she had a question here back. Let's grab this one. Okay, so start metabolism reset a week from today. Excited and nervous. Nervous about potential hyper symptoms, heart racing, anxiety, etc. Hope if my body starts needing less medicine, that the potential hyper symptoms come on gradually. So here's the thing, FM Vic. And we got Kelly with us too. Good to see you, Kelly. Yes, it can happen. And in almost all cases, hyperthyroid symptoms emerge after hyperthyroid blood levels show up. So what I mean by that is, first thing that happens is your TSH goes below range. And for most people, that happens before they get anxiety, heart racing, palpitations. Now, that's not 100% of people, and I don't have a hard number, but I would guess it's probably in the mid to upper 90s. So for most people, you can catch it on your labs before you're feeling just wired, like unpleasantly wired. So yeah, Vic, please do take a peek at your labs after that first month on the reset and work with your doctor, make the adjustments as needed. And if you're not already, please do take into account the green light, yellow light, red light foods in the thyroid reset diet. So the cool trick is you can do both of those things at the same time with like no extra effort. Basically, the metabolism reset diet is already unintentionally avoiding all the yellow and red light foods with just a couple exceptions. There are a few options in it for dairy and for egg yolks. I don't think it mentions sea vegetables, but really just watch a few of those things. You can very easily be on the thyroid reset diet guidelines, those green light foods, while doing the metabolism reset diet. And between the two, it'd be very common to need a change in your thyroid medication. So yeah, check your labs. And again, most people, the labs change before they get hyperthyroid symptoms. So keep us posted, and I wish you all the best in that. Here's another one. Let's see. This is Kiana. My mom, aunt, and uncle all have hypothyroidism, and 2/3 have Hashimoto's. Should I cut out iodine as a preventative or only if I have symptoms later on? Kiana, kudos to you for being proactive and thinking ahead about your health. That's awesome. Super smart. Yeah, look at the thyroid reset diet, and there's the reset phase and there's the maintenance phase. And to really cut to the chase for you, in the book, I've got green light, yellow light, red light foods. So the reset phase is green light foods only, no yellow or red light. You only take green light. Now, maintenance phase is green light's still good, but you can also add in 1 or 2 of the yellow light foods as you wish per day. So Kiana, the maintenance idea is just that. Eat the good foods, but you can throw in a few of the yellow lights with no negative issues. Once you get a hang on what those foods are and what the red light foods are to avoid, you're ready to go, and you can just do those same things long term. I give a lot of thoughts in the book about general healthy diet, good food, and that's important as well. Iodine is one big factor for your thyroid health, but your health is comprised of a lot of factors overall, and I don't want you to ignore any of those. So yeah, take a peek at the maintenance ideas, but the Cliff's notes of it are green light good, 1 or 2 yellow light, totally fine. So yep, easy peasy. All right, so scouring a few more questions here as well. And boy, a bunch more coming in, just scrolling through a little more. And trying to, Kathy's heard smorgasbord before. Kathy, I don't know if you've had been to smorgasbord with the Swedish meatballs, and then there's the lutefisk, which is quite the Scandinavian delicacy. So in Norway and Sweden, cod would be seasonal, and they would get big cod catches sometimes of year and then none for quite a while. So the trick is, how do you preserve this stuff? Well, they soaked it in lye solutions, LYE, and basically dehydrated it. And then you would reconstitute it. And what you end up with is something that's kind of the texture of Jell-O gelatin, a little bit thicker than that, and it's about the fishiest smell you could ever imagine. That's lutefisk. So if anyone else heard about lutefisk, I'd love to hear from you. It's a Scandinavian delicacy. So in northern Minnesota, they always joked about that. They would joke about like the county fair. They would hold a raffle, and first prize winner got 10 pounds of lutefisk, right? Well, second prize winner got 20 pounds of lutefisk. The joke was everyone had a love-hate relationship with it. Okay, so here's one. Yeah, metabolism reset. Okay. Do you think doing metabolism reset is important when dealing with Hashimoto's symptoms? I'm having a lot of side effects from Hashimoto's, mainly hot and cold flashes, fatigue almost every day, woozy feelings. Still into Dr. Wentz's detox. Curious what you had to say. Yeah, again, Dr. Wentz's work is great. The metabolism reset is really targeted to liver function. So if your weight is stubborn, and to be really precise, you can know about this, really simple metrics, height versus waist. So how tall you are versus how big it is around, how far it is around your belly button. And the threshold is 1/2. So if your height, easy numbers here, if a woman's 5 feet tall, 5 times 12, 60 inches, right? So half of that's 30. If a 5-foot woman, her circumference around her belly button is approaching 30 inches or above that, her liver's not happy. Her liver's storing too much triglyceride, and she's very likely lapsing into fatty liver disease. That causes fatigue symptoms, generalized inflammation, and it also makes weight loss pretty difficult, if even impossible. So that's what the metabolism reset is for. So if those things apply to you, it's a great fit. If the main concern is about stabilizing your thyroid, please check out the Thyroid Reset diet. Yeah, there's a lot of good approaches out there you can find, but seriously, this one has been clinically shown to work for 97% of people, and for many to full-on reverse thyroid disease. I've not seen anything else work like that ever, any other approaches at all. So that's why I'm so excited about it, and that's why I share it. Thanks for the reply regarding soy. I always feel a sense of relief when you address my questions. So impressed by the depth of your research on so many topics. Commitment to the thyroid community. Thanks. So Charlene, yeah, just a little more depth on that. I'll come back to Kathy's comment about the lutefisk. So yeah, breast cancer comes up a lot too whenever I talk about soy. What about soy and breast cancer? For a while, we weren't sure. Soy has phytoestrogenic effects, totally open, no secret. What does that mean? Does that mean that soy is like taking estrogen? Well, we now know that there's 2 kinds of estrogen receptors in the body called alpha and beta. And as a generalization, the alpha receptors are in collagen, in your brain, and in your bones. So 2 for 1 there. The beta receptors are breast and endometrial tissue. And as a generalization, healthy women have more stimulation of alpha receptors. They have, in the brain, when they're stimulated, they have fewer hot flashes, they have better cognitive function. In the bones, that means less osteoporosis, better bone health. And the collagen, it means better skin aging. Now, the beta receptors, we don't want those overstimulated. That means breast hyperplasia, possible dysplasia, possible breast cancer. And in the uterus, that means endometrial hyperplasia, endometrial cancer. So what soy does, it acts as a selective estrogen response modifier. That means that it helps those good alpha receptors whilst it blocks those beta receptors. And we now have studies showing that one big paper took women who were treated for hormonally sensitive breast cancer, and it assigned them to 2 groups. One group was encouraged on a very high soy diet. One group was encouraged to avoid soy. Now, before it started, the confidence that soy would be helpful was already pretty high, or else they wouldn't have done the study. But nonetheless, the study added to our knowledge. What they saw was that in real people that had real hormonally sensitive breast cancer, their rate of breast cancer recurrence and their death from it was dramatically lower when they consumed soy versus when they avoided soy. So yeah, we've got good data on that. Kathy, I'm Swedish. Hak lie. Yeah, I don't know how much lutefisk you're consuming. That's where you'd get it from. And most don't eat much of that. But yeah. Oh, here we go. Justine, my grandma and great aunt were Swedish. We had lutefisk every Christmas. Also, korv, which I loved. So, Justine, I don't know what korv is. If you could fill me in, I'd be really curious. So we would have lutefisk, and lefse was one of the other big staples. And if you don't know, most cultures have some kind of a flatbread. So we've got what? We've got pita bread, we've got naan, we've got tortillas. And so the Scandinavian version of that is lefse, except for the Scandinavian version is mostly potato, a lot of potato in it. Oh, potato sausage. Okay, so potato sausage, korv, I've heard that called klub or krub, and I even put that as a recipe in the last book. So grandma would make that, and yeah, good stuff. And then we had rumagrat, and rumagrat, it was probably the most calorically dense thing you could ever imagine. It was kind of like a pudding, but okay. So that's enough on the Scandinavian exotic food. Let's see. Why is that Hashimoto's take so long to show up more towards the later stages? Well, interesting thing, Jamie. So one paper that I cited not too long ago looked at the progression rate of autoimmune thyroid disease, meaning positive antibodies, into hypothyroidism. So of those who have high antibodies, how many lapse into hypothyroidism and how quickly was the question they were asking. And what they saw, they broke people down into whether they had TPO, TG, either or both, and then below 100, 100 to 500, or greater than 500. So the best case scenario was both of them below 100, both below negative. And worst case scenario was both above 500. And the worst case scenario, the 9-year odds of progressing to hypothyroidism was roughly 30%. So if you've got 1,000 people that have really, really high antibodies, yeah, about a third of them will progress to that within 9 years. In the best case scenario, the progressions were about 10, 12%, I think. So not that crazy different, surprisingly. Can you attach the paper link? Jamie, yeah, I did a full webinar series on how to lower thyroid antibodies. And the first one was on general stuff about the antibodies and then diet. Second one was on how meds affect them. And third was on supplements. I'll dig that link up again. Actually, it's on YouTube, and that's Alan Christensen, World Thyroid Day, thyroid antibodies. Any of those things will bring it to you. But I cited that and gave the reference in that. So the big scheme of things, many people have high thyroid antibodies forever and don't progress. It might take years or decades. Some, of course, can sooner, but most do not. The average person does not. Like 2/3 do not. All right, let me grab one or two more from Instagram, and then I'm heading to the kitchen pretty quick. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. That's going to be me, but Dinah won't be there. I'd be surprised. Recent TSH was 186, no others taken. You say under 50. Under other holistics say under 250 because Babette on Instagram. Because Babette. I'm a little puzzled by this. So 186, no others taken. You say under 150. TSH. Because Babette. Can you double check? A TSH over 186, no one says that that's okay. And other holistics, no one talks about 250. I think there's been some wires were crossed. If you want to double check what you were referring to, I'd be happy to sort that out. But as it sounds, doesn't quite make sense with the numbers and what you're referring to. Okay, histamine hangover is with us. I saw one further back that I thought was on the Instagram. Maybe that was on this other feed. Let me check a few of these feeds here. There was couple more I wanted to grab and get. So forgive me while I'm scrolling briefly. Quick one, Tina, is there 130 micrograms of iodine per 100 grams of blueberries? Tina, simple answer, no. I've heard this come up once or twice, and I don't know where that's come from. I hope that I didn't make a typo with that somewhere. But no, blueberries are not a significant source of iodine. They're good foods. I love blueberries. No drawbacks to them. There's so many ways people are too afraid of food. I wouldn't want to add to that unnecessarily. I'm looking around. There was another one I wanted to see that I was different from the topics I've covered so far tonight. So kind of scrolling back and forth, forgive me. Brief one, your thoughts on ecothyro and thyrocomplex. My doctor has been taking the eco 4 days a week, other one 3 days a week, and that contains iodine 1,500 micrograms. So Lot's wife 40. Wow, that's funny. So Lot's wife, like a pillar of salt, right? So Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. So this could kind of be a tie-in to iodine, right? Well, short version of that, yeah, I cited a lot of big studies in the thyroid reset diet, and what I showed was that there's a spot between about 50 and 200 micrograms where adults are least apt to develop thyroid disease. And there's a spot somewhere below 100 micrograms where adults have the best odds of reversing thyroid disease. The World Health Organization said that people who are not at all prone to thyroid disease can occasionally safely tolerate 1,100 micrograms a day here or there. So no, I wouldn't suggest taking 1,500 micrograms a day in supplements. That's way above what anyone says is safe for anyone, even if your thyroid is fine. So, yep, good to avoid. Yeah, there was one I saw before that now I'm not seeing. Well, here's one I have talked about a bit before. Thoughts about benefits of intermittent fasting with hypothyroid. So yeah, it's been studied so thoroughly now. There was a big paper that came out a little over a month ago. And the thought is that intermittent fasting, this is under a subheading of time-restricted feeding. And the general thought is that if you don't eat for periods of time, your body will get healthier and you'll lose weight better and age better. That's the general idea. Now, the aging better question, the difficulty is, so far, all we have is animal studies and animal studies that look at surrogate markers, blood markers, markers that show how their telomeres work, things like that. So what it would take to know that anything helps humans age better would be to see if it helped humans age better when they just did that one variable. Now, let's think about this. That would require watching people for a natural lifespan compared against another group of people that were the same, except for the one thing for a natural lifespan. So we have besides the things that make us less apt to get chronic disease, we cannot make meaningful statements about what helps people live longer. And I won't spend much time on that, but I could go a long time about that. I think a lot of the theories around longevity, we don't know. And when you make guesses based on mechanistic models, someone else could make 20 guesses the opposite way and be no less right. It's all looking at clouds in the sky. But anyway, so back to weight loss. So we know a lot about weight loss and intermittent fasting, and also about fasting in general, time-restricted feeding. And if you look at a group of people who do intermittent fasting, some of them will lose weight. Totally cool. For those, if it was someone to where they couldn't otherwise, that's totally cool. And that's great. I'm happy for them. But when we compare a group of people who does time-restricted feeding versus a group who says just eat less food, this group doesn't do better. And now the bigger problem we have from the recent studies is that those that do time-restricted feeding, intermittent fasting, their weight loss is more muscle loss than it is in other groups. And we know that when you go for long windows of time without ingesting protein, your body eats up more muscle tissue. So far the data all shows, and we got a lot of data on this, that there's not a benefit to body composition. For some people, it may be a coin toss as far as scale weight loss, but we don't see a benefit for body composition. We see a detriment. And then you asked about thyroid function. So the largest body of data we have on time-restricted feeding and thyroid function comes from Ramadan. And there's been several papers looking at how thyroid function changes for people when they do intermittent fasting during Ramadan. And we know that those on thyroid medication, that their TSH scores increase, that they become more hypothyroid during Ramadan. Quite a bit of data on that. And there's a lot of reasons mechanistically why we could guess that might be, but we have human outcome evidence on that. So if someone says, hey, I've got thyroid disease and I'm struggling to get my thyroid right and I can't lose weight, I can't tell them that the data suggests that intermittent fasting will help them. The data we have suggests the exact opposite. And again, I don't care. I'm just going to go where the data tells me. If it worked better, I'd be here saying, this is what I would recommend. I would have written a book about it if that's what I thought was working better. Thank you so much. This Lot's wife isn't going to turn. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because if you turn into a pillar of salt, that would be a sad thing. It's funny. I don't know what brought that up, but I was telling my son that story about Lot's wife and the Sodom and Gomorrah and all that, and curious part of just, cultural history and the story itself. So yeah. Where did that go about? Yeah, because Babette, if you want to give me more details about the TSH 186, I'm so curious about that. Kate SOS, so glad I tuned in. I've had so many people mention fasting to me. And it's something that it seems intuitive. It makes sense intuitively, but we've got to just see how it plays out amongst real people. And yeah, a recent paper looked at this. Many others have as well. And we've seen similar things with ketogenic diets. So we've got multiple big studies showing that ketogenic diets, people can lose pounds on the scale if they're on a ketogenic diet and on a caloric deficit. But in those cases, they lose more muscle mass than people that are on a highly processed diet. So I'm not making this up. Dr. Kevin Hall, PhD, he published a study that was done in a metabolic ward. And that means that all the participants' meals were weighed and measured and calculated. There's no food reporting questionnaire that they filled in wrong. All the food they got was the food the scientists gave them, and it was objective. And one group was on a diet that was about half processed carbohydrate, and a lot of it was sugar and refined carbohydrate. And the other group was full-on keto. They were on the same amount of food. Over this study, the keto group, both groups lost a little bit of weight, mind you, but the group on the junk food, when it was matched per calorie, they lost more fat than the keto group. And there's reasons why we would expect that. We actually need carbohydrate to burn fat. Ketosis is not what happens when you're burning fat. That's the biggest misconception. That's what happens when you can't burn fat. When you can't burn fat for fuel, you turn it into ketones. That's what happens. Ketones are not fat that's burned. Ketone is fat that you were unable to burn, which is the exact opposite of what everyone is telling people. And that's why the ketogenic diets don't cause effective fat loss. But we do know from children who go on them that they develop thyroid disease. So kids don't get a lot of thyroid disease. In pre-adolescent children, the rate of thyroid disease is about 1 out of every 1,250. And we've tracked kids, some kids with seizures that don't respond to medication, the ketogenic diets help them, no debate. There are side effects, there are complications, but they are sometimes helpful. However, in kids, again, kids who 1 out of 1,250 gets thyroid disease, when they go ketogenic, roughly 27% requires thyroid medication. So about a third. So yeah, and we know that when your body's insulin is far too low, that you will slow thyroid output. Even if you've got plenty of food, but there's no carbohydrate, your body thinks you're starving, and your body shuts down your thyroid to make you not starve. So yeah, I'm seeing some surprising stuff here. Glad I found your work. Surprised about this. Yeah, that's what we know about it. Okay, where are we at? Let me grab one last one. Let me scroll a little bit. So because Babette, your question I didn't understand, I'm still watching, and I'd love to hear more details on what you were asking me about the TSH being that high, because I'm curious and I want to help, but the question didn't totally make sense. So, here's what I was looking for. Okay, so this is from Kathy. I saw a video where you mentioned possible prion contamination in some natural bovine whole food thyroid supplements. What about all natural whole food supplements with bovine bone, heart, liver, adrenal, and or thyroid in them? So Kathy, yeah, that's a really good question. And I would be concerned about that. We know that the prion contamination comes from basically cow brain tissue. And I don't want to be gruesome or graphic, but when cows are slaughtered, it's by percussion hammers to the head. So they get a really hard blow to the head from a machine. Their brain tissue goes all around inside their head and neck cavity. So there's brain tissue in places you wouldn't expect, and that includes the thyroid tissue. So Kathy, I would consider that a concern for contamination. Now, here's another wrinkle. The bovine thyroid supplements that are in the market, they have thyroid hormones in them. They don't say they do, but they've been assayed and they do, and some have a lot. But it gets weirder. One of the assays looked at thyroid support products, and it found that many of them, some say, yes, this has bovine thyroid tissue. Cool, and that had hormone and that could throw things off, got it. Many of them didn't say they had thyroid bovine brain tissue. Thyroid bovine thyroid tissue. Many of them only listed herbs or vitamins, but 9 out of 10 in that category still had hidden active thyroid hormone from bovine thyroid tissue. So yeah, they didn't disclose it on the label, but it was still there. And a lot of you may not know about the prion issue, but prions freak me out. There's no way around that. So prions are even less living than viruses are. They're only little fragments of protein. And a prion can get in your body, it can end up in your brain, and nothing can happen for 15 years. And then your brain melts. And I'm not exaggerating that. So yeah, this is what's called mad cow disease or bovine spongiform encephalopathy. In humans, we call this Creutzfeldt-Jakob syndrome. A colleague of mine lost his wife to this. I've interviewed him and talked to him about it, and it's horrible. I mean, it was just a brutal, tragic thing. We were dear friends. We still are, but I was friends with him and talking to him during the whole process and seeing it happen in real time. So yeah, I'd be really avoidant of things that could possibly have prion contamination. On that happy note, yeah, that is a pretty intense thing, isn't it? Is there something a little lighter or easier that I could mention? Here's a fun one. Cheryl, let's close out on this one. Good to see you back, Cheryl. I'll see you here every now and then. And can I do the adrenal reset, metabolism reset, and thyroid diet all at the same time? Cheryl, you can. And here's a trick. And you're not the first to have that question. So the metabolism reset is a structured thing, right? 2 shakes, 1 meal, got it. The thyroid reset is really about a food list to target, okay? So first off, we'll couple those two. And to couple those two, all you do is a metabolism reset and just focus on the green light foods. That easy. And really, that's pretty much doing the metabolism reset. There's only a few foods on there, like eggs are occasional and some dairy products are occasional. You just skip those and you're totally golden. You got those 2 covered. Now the last part, the adrenal reset. So that one, it's important to get some healthy carbs at night. Guess what? You got that on the metabolism reset. And then it's also important to get light in the morning and do some general habits that help your adrenal level. So the adrenal reset diet has a quiz in the book, and it leads you to one of 4 levels: thriving, stressed, wired tired, or crashed. You can also do the quiz for free at adrenalquiz.com. If you don't have the book, you can check that out. And basically, each of those 4 levels, there's some lifestyle tricks for you. So you do those tricks, you do the shakes and the metabolism, you do the green light foods, and you're doing all 3 at once. That's a really good question. And I'm going to close it off on that. Off to the kitchen tonight. I'm going to do bake up a sourdough spelt for one thing. And someone sent in a picture of her sourdough spelt that she's got dialed in pretty well. Okay. Oh, here's a dilemma. I've got a question that I cannot ignore because it's like my pet peeve for good reason. So this is the last question. Kate, read your info on low TSH. I am on Armour and it's always been very low or non-existent. I guess that's not a question. Kate is, well, the stuff is real, Kate. The stuff on low TSH is real, and it's a big deal. It does create risks. I mentioned before in response to a question that it often gets low before there are hyperthyroid side effects. That's quite common. So just know that. You shouldn't expect to have side effects just because of it, but it does cause risks. Now, Kate, if you're someone that only feels well when your TSH is pushed low, there's some other reason you're tired that hasn't been diagnosed. Kate, if you Google Alan Christensen, 14 hidden causes of fatigue, that's all about thyroid disease and some reasons to be tired that you might not know of, and that can direct you on some of those. Some doctors will say that Armour suppresses the TSH, or that it's harmless to suppress the TSH. Neither of those are true. Okay. Have a good night, you guys. I'm going to go get busy in the kitchen with some sourdough. Also, I got some really good leftover minestrone I'm going to warm up, and I'll be back with you guys really soon. Take good care and have a good evening. Bye-bye.